Well, hey everybody, the H1B guy here, and tonight we're back for another episode of the Documented Dreamers series live. This is episode 3. Tonight is Thursday, March the 18th, 2021. And, it's a lot of things going on in the news, but before we get started, I'd like to ask you, if you haven't already, to please subscribe to the H1B Guy channel here on YouTube and like this video so that I can continue to produce more content like this for you. I also wanted to mention the H1B Guy offers a variety of consulting services. I help businesses and individuals solve complex work authorization issues in the recruitment process while bringing awareness to employment-based immigration benefits. If I can help you, please reach out. I'd love to hear how. Tonight's live stream is brought to you by RecruiterNetworks.com, the smart solution for digital perm ads since 2001. Well, for some of you who may be new to this channel and you're wondering, why is the H1B guy covering legal childhood arrivals? Well, as I always say, that answer is simple. And that is one of the founding principles and missions of the H1B Guy platform is to bring awareness to employment-based immigration benefits. And this issue has a huge direct and indirect impact in that regard. So I know there's going to be a lot of you joining us here tonight, and I just want to ask you to leave comments in the chat if you're impacted by this issue. We found that through the last couple of episodes we've done, the chat has been just a very supportive community of others going through this issue. And so I also wanted to mention that if you have a documented dreamer, what you need to do is have them or go to improvethedream.org/survey and fill out and complete that survey for them. And someone will be in touch with them. So it's very important because each Documented Dreamer series live that we do features contributors and advocates from improvethedream.org. So tonight I get to introduce to you 3 new faces. Erin, how you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. How about you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much. Pleasure to have you on. And Sumana, how are you?
I'm doing great. Excited to hop on tonight.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. And Morgan, how are you tonight?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. And of course, you recognize Deep. Deep, how you doing tonight?
Doing great, Rob. Thank you for having us.
Awesome. So glad to have you back on, and glad to have 3 new contributors from improvethedream.org back on. Just wanted to ask you again, this is a good time, like this video. If you have questions or comments, we'll try to get to what we can at the end. We've got a lot to cover tonight. There was a lot of news that really kind of was lingering throughout the course of the day. Last week we knew that immigration was going to be in the chambers this week, and so ultimately we saw that come to fruition today. But again, one more time, improvethedream.org/survey. If you have a documented dreamer and you haven't signed up on this survey, you need to go ahead and do that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn it over to Deep for an update on what's been going on with improvethedream.org over the last month. And of course, we're going to let him talk about the good news that came down from HR 6 that passed today by a vote of 228 to 197, I believe is the number I saw. So Deep, go ahead, kick us off.
Thank you, Rob. So as you all probably know, we had some exciting news today with the passage of the Dream and Promise Act, which for the first time included many documented dreamers, including anyone who's been here as the son or daughter of an E1, E2, H1B, or L visa holder. And it's such a big accomplishment and a great victory for all the advocacy all the documented dreamers have done over the last several years. And it's something to be really excited about, as it's a major step just getting onto the bill. And then we're halfway there now with the passage in the House. So a great victory, because it didn't come easy. There was a lot of resistance in making it onto the bill. But it's a big accomplishment for all documented dreamers. As far as the next steps for the bill, it's going to go on to the Senate, where it does need 60 votes for the bill to become law. And there's been a lot of questions about like why it needs 60 votes and why not just 51. So in the Senate, while for final passage, the vote would only have to be 51, there's something called the filibuster, which means if a senator wants to block a bill, they could keep debating it. And to end a debate, you would need 60 votes to move on to getting a vote. So essentially, for any bill like this to become law, it does need 60 senators agreeing for it to move on, or they would just filibuster it. There are other remedies, like getting rid of the filibuster, which has been in the talks, or potentially moving the immigration bill via something called the reconciliation process, which would allow a bill to pass with just 51 votes. But there's a lot of intricacies with that process as well, and whether the Senate parliamentarian would rule to allow something like that to happen with the 51 votes, and then also if the Democratic leadership would want to go that route. But that's going to be kind of a last resort. And for now, we have to assume that it will need 60 votes to break the filibuster. So the plan for that bill, it's not expected that the Dream and Promise Act, or HR 6, is going to get a vote on the House floor. Most likely, they'll work with that and try to come up with a new bill that can potentially garner some Republican support. So there's going to be a lot of negotiations going on. Most likely, there's going to be a markup of the Senate version of the Dream Act, hopefully sometime next month. And our hope is that what we're working on is making sure that the senators make sure the documented dreamer provision is included in that as well. As far as everything that Improve the Dream and all our whole team is working on, we've been having lots of meetings with both House and Senate offices, with a focus on Senate offices now. And we're making a lot of good progress, but we have to keep pushing. And the more people we have on board, the better. So as Rob said, if your kids haven't already joined our Slack group, make sure to go to improvethedream.org/survey, and they'll get an invite to the Slack groups. So a lot of exciting things happening, and we can celebrate this and then get ready to advocate for the next step.
I know that the language came out a couple of weeks ago, and I think the thing that you were most excited about was the text that was included. The E, H, and L language specifically was something that Improve the Dream has worked a couple of years on now to get that specific language included. And so I can't stress this point to you enough for those of you who are out there watching this, or maybe watching this at a later date. And that is, advocacy in numbers is so important, and having someone like Deep sort of lead this is one of the reasons that this language is even included in this Dream and Promise Act. And so kudos to you, Deep. Today's a night to celebrate, but there's a lot of work left to be done. So I wanted to talk about two questions that I had for you, and then I want to move on to the girls. The first one was a question that you did answer on Twitter, but I just wanted to put it out on the YouTube channel and the stream for everyone to hear, because it was from my friend Jigar, and that's at JD Patel _JDP, who said, do you know if this would also include documented dreamers that came to the U.S. under TNTD status? But what he was also asking too, and I didn't bring this up, is he also talked about they've changed statuses now to H, but they originally came as a legal childhood arrival on a TN. So wanted you to talk about that, answer that question, Deep. And then the other question that I've seen a lot tonight is, if HR 6, hypothetically, let's just say it becomes law, are H4 kids, E2 kids, would they be eligible for green card immediately, or what's the timeline around that? Because I think there's some confusion around that. Deep?
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, both of those are really common questions. So as far as the TN and TD statuses, if that person had only had those statuses, they unfortunately would not have been eligible. It's something that we tried to make sure was included. We tried to expand the language when we were working with the drafters. However, unfortunately, as you mentioned, it's something we've worked on for the last several years, and it's such a grueling process because the amendment that the wording we have in the bill now, it's kind of it's evolved from about 4 different bills starting from 4 years ago that the first congressman included some documented dreamers, E2 kids, in one of his bills, and that language has evolved to include E1, E2, H1B, and L. And our goal was to make it so basically all children, regardless of the statuses, because there are, in fact, people even on F2 statuses who came here as children, or as you said, the TD statuses. But unfortunately, they weren't willing to make that change right now. So they went with the amendment that we were able to get offered last year on the Dream and Promise Act. So it's still a big step forward, but we're trying to make sure in the Senate, hopefully we can convince them to make sure that all documented dreamers are included. As far as the specific scenario, because they were now on an H1, they would qualify. So essentially anyone who has ever been on an E1, E2, H1B, or L dependent visa would qualify for the status, irrespective of their current age or current status, or irrespective of their parents' current statuses. So if they're an E2 dependent or if they're aged out, it really doesn't matter. And it also doesn't matter if their parents are in the United States or had to leave or are on a different status. And that's a deliberate thing. We really made sure that the language reflected that. And we've gotten a lot of clarifications on that as well. And to the second question about the H4 E2s, whether they would instantly get a green card. So yes, if this were to become law, everyone, so as soon as it's signed into law, everyone that would technically qualify would be protected from deportation. And then after you apply for the green card, depending on how long the process is, I'm assuming like 6 months or so, you would instantly get a conditional green card for 10 years. And then certain individuals were eligible for removing conditions immediately. So that would be if you've completed at least 2 years of college and some other requirements as well. But for most of us, it's probably going to be meeting that 2 years of college, and then you would remove conditions or get a permanent green card. So then citizenship after 5 years from there.
Wow. That's huge. That's updating some immigration laws that we've had that, at this point are archaic. And, to hear this and think about the thousands of folks that have had to deportate, right? Self-deportate even. This is awesome, man. I know this isn't time to pop the bubbly or anything like that, but it definitely is time to know that this hard work is starting to pay off. So I wanted to move over to Aaron, and I think Aaron has a story that, for me, it hits on a bunch of different levels. And I've told you guys I'm the spouse of an RN. I've lived the RN spouse life for a long time, and the respect that I have for what goes into that. And so Aaron's currently working as an RN on an OPT EAD, and her visa will expire in May, and RNs aren't eligible for STEM extension, which would grant her another 24 months. And it's something we've talked about, is getting med included in STEM definitions, but we're still not there yet. So, Aaron, after coming to the U.S. as a 7-year-old child, you're now faced with losing your status. Tell me what that's like for you right now.
So it's really not a great feeling, obviously. It's almost unfathomable to be faced with this kind of reality, and it's hard to come to terms with, just because this is the country and the life that I've known for nearly my entire life, for a large part of my life. And so to be faced with going back to a country where I only lived for the first 7 years of my life, where I haven't made those like long lasting relationships, and where I haven't lived in 16 years, it's a really difficult thing to have to come to terms with.
And you and we talked about briefly this concept, and it's becoming this theme here on this channel of the personal stories that I've been telling, and that's waking up in the morning, this is the first thing you think about. Going to bed at night, it's the first thing you think about. But for you right now, you're working 60 hours a week and you're not trying to think about it at all, right?
Right. It's kind of something that I've tried to push to the back of my mind as much as possible, and then have moments where I realize, like, oh, no, I really can't push it to the back of my mind. Like, this is something that I need to be thinking about and planning for continuously, because I feel like we've all experienced this feeling, but you never feel entirely secure in your situation. Even if you have a visa, your visa got renewed for 5 years, it's like, well, what law are they going to change this time? What requirement are we going to have to fulfill this time? And so I think that's a feeling all of us have experienced, of just never feeling that security. And that's what sort of the biggest threat to that is occurring for me right now.
Yeah, and you told me this story about, I think maybe you were in elementary or middle school, where it was time to go get your stamp. And your teacher was like, "Why are you going to be gone so long?" And you're like, "Oh, I've got to go get my passport stamped and renew my visa." And that was like the end of it, right? Like that was, oh, okay, that reaction, right? And I think it's a lot of people don't understand.
Yeah, she was completely, I think it was in high school, and she, why are you taking a week-long vacation in the middle of the year? I did the international baccalaureate program, so it was like a big deal to take a whole week off, and I was like, I have to. I have no other choice. I'm not going on a fun vacation. We're going to renew a visa.
Yeah. Well, and I know you girls grew up in Central Florida, and you can't say that you're going to Disney World for a week, right? That wasn't an excuse that was gonna fly for being out of school for a week either. So yeah, I mean, I think that for you, you're kind of faced with this harsh reality right now, and that reality is like, I need to consider other options. And when you start to look at what are those options for someone like you, right? You could go back and get your master's, but that means back into student visa status. That means more financial commitments, from an international student standpoint, right? What are you considering? What are your options that you're looking at right now?
So there's a few different options on the table. None of them are ideal. Ideally, I just like keep on working at the job that I've got, and that would be great. I'm happy where I am, and that would be fantastic. That's not realistic though. So one option is to go back to school and get a master's degree. I have a bachelor's degree in health sciences and a bachelor's degree in nursing, so just continuing on from those degrees with a master's program, and then I would get additional OPT at the end of that program. But then that just feels like continuing this cycle of school OPT, and that can be sort of feel like an endless loop that you can't get out of. Another option is to try to seek sponsorship through my employer. So I'll be looking into that route. And then really the last option is to just go back to the UK and nurse in the UK, be a nurse in the UK, whether that's temporarily or permanently, depending on what legislation changes in America. But those are sort of my options I'm looking at the moment.
Yeah, here we are, on maybe the back quarter of this global pandemic that has changed our entire way of life. And yet, as a country, based on our immigration laws, we're looking to force deportation on a registered nurse who fills a gap where there is a significant shortage. Those numbers are undisputable. And, I think for me, we talked about H1B being an option for you, and maybe, looking at an exempt type sponsor, but it still comes down to, even as an H1B and exempt status, you've got to qualify based on years of experience, and here you are with, 2 bachelor's degrees and about 10, 11 months of experience. Right. And so what it does is that cycle then all of a sudden is constricting, and your options start to diminish very quickly. And thank you so much for sharing that, because I mean, you're in this situation where the reality is going to become very harsh very soon for you. And I don't want to pick at that wound any more than just to call attention to it and bring awareness for the fact that here's a nurse, a registered nurse that's U.S. educated, lived here since she was 7, and now in 2 months is going to lose her work authorization. Think about that. Think about how broken that is. It just, to me, it strikes these nerves that I can't explain. And so, Aaron, thank you for sharing that. I want to move on to Samana, Samana, you have a very similar story to Aaron's, and that is, you're working on an OPT EAD. You've got an employer who's, trying to win an H1B lottery, petition for you. Fill me in on how did you get to this point of where you are now, working in pharma, doing some really innovative type work.
Yeah, so I first moved to the States when I was 2 years old, and have basically lived here since. I graduated from UCLA with a bioengineering degree in 2019, and thankfully that did set me up for the STEM extension. So I've used up my 1 year of OPT, and now I'm on the 24-month extension, and I work in pharma, biotech consulting, and my employer tried for the lottery last year. Unfortunately, I didn't get picked, but I'm gonna get placed in the lottery again this year. I have one more shot next year. And if I don't land it either this year or next year, then technically by August of next year, I won't have status. My current backup plan is I am preparing to apply to law school if an H1B doesn't work out. So that's kind of the game plan, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, just trying to keep your options open. And I'm not sure what law school is like for international students. I'm sure that there's probably an increased expense there. But your story is also unique in the sense that, and you have a term for it. And then I'm sorry, I'll let you, really a blended family, right? Because you have a younger brother who, is a U.S. citizen. And I think that presents its own different set of issues, right? And can you talk a little bit about what that's like for you and your family? I mean, when you told me that originally, I joked, well, your brother potentially could be sponsoring you and your mother and father before their date comes current. So can you share some of that?
Yeah, so my younger brother, who is 6.5 years younger than me, he's a citizen. So that technically makes my family a mixed status family. And essentially, I guess some of the issues a mixed status family faces is a lot of times I feel like my parents had this huge burden on their shoulders, whether to stay or move back, because if we stay here, I'm facing the struggle with the immigration system. But if we move back, then my brother is going to face trouble in the immigration system in India for a while. He's going to have a very uphill battle getting acclimated to the education system there. And additionally, my brother also has this huge burden on his shoulders where, since his parents are not citizens, a lot of the times he's at risk of losing his parents and their ability to stay here united with him. Like last year, my father was out of the country, stuck outside of the country for 9 months. So it's almost heartbreaking that even though he's a citizen, he also faces a lot of the mental burden that comes along with being associated and like being family with visa immigrants.
Yeah, and I think, it's interesting. We don't really hear a lot of the mixed status families. That's not a story that is quite as common, but it's clearly out there. And here you are, again, and working in an OPT, with STEM extension and trying to get an H1B, right? And I think that's the thing to me that's really just mind-boggling about it all. But you also founded and have created an initiative kind of similar to what improvethedream.org does, but different. And so can you tell us a little bit about Hidden Dream? And I know you've got a link that you want me to share, so I'm going to share that too. For those who are looking and interested in more about thehiddendream.org. So I'll share that right now. But can you tell us, Simona, a little bit about a Hidden Dream?
Yeah, so the Hidden Dream was founded early last year as a spin-off of an organization that I founded in 2019 called H for Hope. The Hidden Dream focuses on creating a community and uplifting those affected by the broken immigration system. We focus on hosting workshops, creating guides. We also started a scholarship fund last year, specifically for children of dependent visa statuses, because one of the biggest issues is we don't qualify for any sort of federal funding, and a lot of scholarships exclude us because we don't have a green card or a social security number. So the scholarship fund we started does help address that. And two major things we just worked on was we released a 30-page survival guide. So it teaches your children everything from high school through finding their first job, all the different things that they need to keep in mind and prepare for paperwork wise and just general like schoolwork wise, so that they don't miss anything and that they can maintain status and survive and thrive. And we also released a year-long calendar of scholarships that dependent visa children qualify for, regardless of their status. So please encourage your children to check that out and apply to these scholarships because you don't come by them often. So yeah, we also have a Slack channel as well that you can find a link through the Improve the Dream Slack, or if anyone on my team is here, they'll post a link for that as well.
And I shared the link to thehiddendream.org/resources. There it is one more time. And I'll include that link in the description of the video sometime tonight or first thing tomorrow when we wrap this up. So it'll be in there for those that are catching it on the back ends. Very cool. That's not something that I've thought about as scholarships for international students that may be here in the US. It's a very unique scholarship, campaign. So thank you so much for sharing your story and, just where you are right now. Very cool. A failed lottery attempt is not uncommon. So, good that you have an employer that's willing to keep trying for you. That says a lot about you. So I wanted to move on to Morgan. And, Morgan, you have this classic story. It's been a theme here during this series, and that's someone who's turning 21, turning 21 in the next 12 months, I believe. And, and instead of an event that, is celebrated widespread among American youth, you're kind of faced with this harsh reality of aging out, of your dependency. We'll talk more about, the turning 21, but I wanted to ask you, what's that like for you right now? And when did you realize, because, you have an older sister that's going through the same thing, when did you realize that this was a problem for you?
Yeah, so growing up, I think we always kind of assumed, maybe naively, the immigration laws were going to change before my sister and I would age out. But obviously with her, that has not been the case. And I actually turned 21 in December. So basically, I'm going to have to go onto an F1 visa or leave. And I'm actually set to graduate with my undergrad degree in December too. So that should be exciting, but there's kind of this lingering uncertainty. But right now I'm looking at going into physical therapy. So I would be going to do a doctor of physical therapy degree. But USF doesn't accept international students, but UCF does. So I would have to transfer to that school. And in terms of when I realized that this was something I was going to be dealing with, was kind of when I was applying for college, and I started realizing that my friends weren't going through the same thing that I was, dealing with scholarships and financial aid.
It's crazy. Just, when you start to go through that, it's a lot of it's teenage years for pretty much almost everyone that we've had on. It's been somewhere between 14 to 17, 18 that that they realize that we have a problem. And a lot of it, having an older sister, right, and seeing her go through that, I think, it's probably given you this sense of, wow, this is a harsh reality, because I mean,
Definitely.
here she is, 2 degrees, OPT, and still in the cycle, still fighting. And, I think about you and you thinking about PhD PT school. And I had Himanshu Kaushik on, way back in October, and Stamp It Out Q&A 3, and he was a Texas A&M PhD in physical therapy, still on an H1B, still stuck in the green card backlog. And so, ultimately it's one of those things where your choices start to get more limited and limited, right? The good thing to me is you're thinking about your options. You're graduating in December, and you're also turning 21 in December. If you're serious about this PhD program, hopefully there seems to be this big push for American educated PhDs and some reform for employment-based preferences for that in the future. But ultimately, I think, as you said, you've got to go where they accept you. And that's a big thing for international students, is not only where they accept you, but tuition wise, where you can afford, right? I mean, I think that's a big part of it. Just one of those.
Definitely. So yeah, where can I go? And then also, affording, it's another thing too, another aspect, another layer to it.
And then you start to go, well, okay, if I'm not going to do that, then, like your sister was talking about, do I go back to the UK? But I think for you, I mean, you were much younger when you came. And so, the UK,
I was 3 when we came.
And the UK life for you is completely foreign.
Definitely. Yeah. So I was 3 when I came. So this is, very much my home. This is all I've ever known. So if I had to leave, it would be starting over, someplace completely new to me.
Right. And here we go. Another case of, physical therapy. And we talk about rehabilitation and what a large part that's played in the pandemic. PTs are kind of the forgotten part of, medical care. And rehabilitation is just as big a part as the beginning. It just is. So Wanted to ask all of you out there, if you can, please like this video. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the H1B Guy channel here on YouTube. Before we logged on, I was very close to crossing over 1,200 subscribers here on this channel. So if you can, if you haven't already and you're watching, and ask you to please subscribe here to the H1B Guy channel on YouTube. What I want to do now is I want to move to a group Q&A. Some of these questions we've covered before through the other Documented Dreamers episode 1 and 2, but I think that they're good to hear because they create this uniformity in all of your stories. And one of the things I think that has been constant, and we just heard this come out of Morgan's mouth, and that's, well, none of you were born here. The one thing that continues to resonate with me, with all of the kids that are involved with ImproveTheDream.org that I've had the opportunity to meet and interact with, is this concept of you identifying as an American instead of your country of birth. And so, Morgan, I know you hit on that just a little bit a few minutes ago, but I wanted you to start this one off and talk about, how you identify as American.
Yeah, so I definitely identify as American, and I really consider America, and specifically Florida, my home. I did all of my education here, and starting in elementary school and now in college. I was also very involved in the community. I did competitive baton twirling for over 10 years. I've volunteered throughout my childhood and teenage years, and so this is truly something that it's all I've known. So if I had to leave, it would be quite a shock.
And weren't you telling me about the 4th of July celebration where you were out front and it's like, Lee Greenwood's proud to be an American is blazing, and here you are, red, white, and blue, baton twirling, and the entire crowd probably has no idea that you're not even a citizen,
Yeah. I had the featured solo on the "I'm proud to be an American" line, and while I consider myself American, a lot of people wouldn't because I'm not a citizen. So it's pretty funny, but it's also really serious when you consider the implications of that.
It's a harsh reality for someone who's 20 plus years old to face. It just is. And I think for you as a teenager there, or maybe even a little younger, even harsher reality, because the fact that moment has still stuck with you says that it's one of those life moments that you probably will never forget. And that's just mind boggling. So, Samana, Aaron, do you have anything you wanted to add to, this concept of identifying as American?
I was just going to add to it that when we moved over here, our parents really we moved here to have better opportunities, just in general, education wise, just all kinds of better opportunities in America. It's the land of opportunity. And I think my parents really wanted us to immerse ourselves in the culture here and feel like Americans and do all the things that Americans do and all the things you hear about in movies and TV shows that are American. And so I think that it's a testament to them that they did a really good job of making us feel so American that's how we feel and that's how we identify. And I just thought it's an interesting feeling.
Yeah, and I know your dad's been a really big advocate for the two of you, and I think that that shows here with the fact that you two are willing to come on here. Samana, did you want to add anything to that? Oh, did you freeze?
Yeah, a lot of what Morgan said definitely. Oh,
nope, you're good. We got you. Nope, we got you.
Oh, okay, awesome. Cool. Yeah, a lot of what Morgan said definitely resonated with me. Been here since I was 2, did most of my education here since preschool. I literally remember the preschool I went to, and it's home because this is where I saw not only myself grow up, but I also saw my brother grow up here. And I think the biggest thing is it's just a piece of paper that prevents me from having the title of being an American, but when it comes to lifestyle, culture, values, experiences, everything else lines up with my closest friends and everyone else that has lived here. And like one specific thing that sticks out to me was, like Morgan was a competitive baton twirler, I was a competitive roller figure skater at the national and junior world class level, but I knew that if I pursued that further, I couldn't even compete for the country I had been training in for over a decade. So it's just like moments like that where it really hits you that, wow, this single piece of paper has defined so much in terms of like opportunity for me in the future.
Yeah, and expense too, right? I mean, that's another factor of it that isn't talked about. We've talked about identifying as American, but and we alluded to this a little bit earlier with Morgan, where we were talking about when did she know that this was a problem for her, and this is what I refer to as the secret. And the secret is that, when you realize that you have this problem, but yet you really don't know who you can talk to about it. Your parents are trying to avoid it because they have this guilt and burden that they're the ones who brought you here, pursuing an opportunity, as Aaron said, right? But, at the end of the day, they brought you here without really realizing that, oh, when my kids turn 21, they're going to lose status, or they think that the laws are going to change, and here we are in still the same position with very little comprehensive immigration reform. So I just wanted to hit on quickly the idea of this secret and what it's like living with that burden. Aaron, you want to kick us off?
Sure, and I just want to preface this with our neighbors just started having music practice upstairs, so just bear with us.
Hey, that's okay. Don't worry about it. This is a low budget amateur professional show here that we're putting out, right?
Perfect. Yeah, should be background music.
Yeah.
So I was thinking about this earlier, and I was trying to think of because for me, I never kept my immigration status a secret per se. From my friends, I feel like if any of my friends ever came over to my house, they heard my parents and me talking, and they heard the accent, and they were like, something's different here. And so it was never really a secret for me. So I was trying to think of what I would consider it, and I think that it's something that has to really be explained to people, because a lot of Americans, born and raised here, they haven't known anyone that's gone through this. So I think of it as like a learning opportunity or a teaching opportunity for people. So when I tell friends about it, most of their reactions are, well, why don't you just go apply for citizenship? And then you have to go through the whole, well, that's not how it works. And here's the process for me. Here's what we've gone through so far. Here's my options. There aren't really that many. And so I feel like I've educated a lot of friends about that. So yeah, it does feel, it's like a burden, and it does feel sort of like a secret, but I like to treat it as a teaching opportunity for my friends.
You mean you can't go down to the DMV and get your work permit? I mean, that's a joke. I say that as a joke, and I've referenced it a lot here on this channel, that was credited to William Hahn on a Vox piece that he penned as an expatriate. And I think it's crazy, right, to think about that. That the average American thinks that you go down to the DMV to get your work permit, right? Sumana or Morgan, do you have anything you wanted to add on the secret?
Yeah. So I feel like I first realized what was going on early senior year of high school, and really experienced it when I was trying to get a job at like a local ice cream store, and I realized I couldn't do that. Then I tried applying to colleges like my friends, and then my parents were like, no, you need to fill out different applications. And then slowly everything else that seemed normal for my age ended up being like abnormal for me to get. Like, I couldn't get a driver's license. I got my first state issued ID in California when I was like 21 because our paperwork keeps expiring and then it wouldn't stay valid long enough to get a state ID. So oftentimes I wouldn't keep my status a secret with friends, but I would hide like the obstacles I was going through because I just didn't want other people to feel pity for me. Because deep down, I was like, you know what? I'll face this issue. I'll get over it. So I hid the little itty bitty details of things I wouldn't be able to do, but I was always pretty open about my status. And I started being a lot more open after when I tried to change my visa status to an F1. I went to India and then it got rejected. So I got stuck there for a couple weeks, and that was like a mortifying experience. And once I was able to return, I decided that's when I wanted to be way more vocal about this issue, advocate for change, and do something, because no one else should have to go through the emotions me and my family went through. So now it's no longer a secret. I write about it. I talk about it. Honestly, I'm pretty like proud of everything I've been able to accomplish, even with like the obstacles. So it's not a secret. It's almost like a badge of honor at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I'm proud of you too. What you've done with the hiddendream.org and now partnering with Improve the Dream to continue to provide scholarships that's just amazing. But two, a handbook, a playbook really is what you've created. And that's, it's awesome.
And
Morgan, go ahead, Simona, sorry.
I guess like the beauty of it is if we do our work right along with Improve the Dream, then eventually these workshops, these guidebooks, all of that won't be necessary. So that's the ultimate goal, to almost become irrelevant in a sense.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Morgan, did you have anything you wanted to add on the secret?
Yeah, I would just add that I guess I didn't necessarily try to hide my immigration status, but I wouldn't like necessarily share it. Like a lot of my closest friends, I would say, don't completely understand my situation because like they've never had to worry about it or experience it. So I've kind of like, why should I burden them? But I've recently learned that there's value in sharing my experience, and so I've been trying to be more open about that.
Yeah, that's right. There's a power in those numbers, and them understanding. And even if it's like, hey, here's a letter template, just put your name here and here, and do you mind sending it to this email address? Like, you probably have a handful of friends that are willing to do that for you, and it's just a matter of being open and transparent and asking. It's just, that's how advocacy works. So I wanted to ask, and we hit on this earlier, and really wasn't sure when the vote was going to take place, but just so happened to line up with today. And that's, on HR 6, the Dream and Promise Act of 2021. Are you, the four of you, Deep, I want to include you in this. Does this give you some hope right now that, maybe we are nearing or inching ever so closer to some real reform for legal childhood arrivals?
I can go first on this. I really think, I'm very hopeful. As I said earlier, like this advocacy process for me started about 4 years ago, and at that time, it was difficult even seeing support for this population being included in a Dreamer solution, and to get to this stage where we're essentially in the premier bill for the Democrats, which passed in a bipartisan way. I think it shows that there is hope, and if something is going to happen, we will be included. Now, there's a lot of other things that might come in between. What happens in the Senate? Are they going to come up to an agreement to get 60 votes? But as far as like having hope, whether we'll get a solution for documented dreamers, I'd say there's more hope than there probably has been in the last decade. So absolutely.
That's awesome to hear. It just is, because it's, hope can keep us going. What about any of the other of you? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree with what Deep said. Like, I feel like I was in a very pessimistic place when I first met Deep and started talking about advocacy, why we kind of like steered away from it when we found out the hidden dream, because we just were like, we didn't know if the timing's right, if the momentum's there. And if you think about it, it took the Latino and Hispanic community almost 20 years to get to this point. And I was thinking, okay, it's going to take us like another 10, 15 years to even see our community in any sort of immigration bill. So it's mind blowing, and it's been such a great day. And I am way more hopeful that something's going to get done, and it's going to get done soon. And I think one of the best things I learned from Deep is like, you have to keep a positive mindset. And something Deep always says is like, if like there's going to be legislation passed, we're going to be included in it. And I feel like it's almost like a positive manifestation technique that's really helped me, and like motivating not only myself to keep going, but also to help motivate others to keep fighting for it, because I feel like change is very, very near.
He's been way more confident through this than I have. I'll tell you that. And I don't, I understand the pessimism though, right? Simona, I get that pessimistic sort of outlook. Aaron, Morgan, you girls holding out hope here on HR6?
Yeah, it's definitely something to be hopeful about. I think at first when I heard about it, there's been legislation in the past that's come about that we've been included on, and then we're taken off and stuff like that. So it's hard to let my hopes get really high, because I just don't want them to get crushed in the end. But it is nice to have that like little glimmer of hope, like a silver lining almost. And I agree about that pessimistic attitude, because just the situation that I'm in life and like the timing of everything, it's hard not to be pessimistic about everything. And so it is nice to have this little like glimmer of hope.
Morgan, do you want to?
I would just add that, I'm definitely holding out hope for this. And if it gets passed, that would be great. But, it's this balance of waiting for it to get passed, and then also, taking matters into, my own hands, because you can't just, if everything keeps going, we're not stopping and waiting to get passed, so I'm trying to, stay hopeful, but also realistic.
Yeah, that's, you start to see things, and at the point you're like, okay, these things keep coming up. At some point, when will it become a reality? But you can't wait for that. You definitely have to take your own situation and help, guide that as much as possible. So I wanted to talk about, I know Aaron and Morgan, your parents have been involved in the E2, group for quite a while. And, Simona, you refer to you kind of the ups and downs that your parents have gone through. And we've talked about this a little bit, but I just wanted to cover how the three of you got involved with improvethedream.org and why you want to come on this channel and share your story.
I can start with that one.
Okay.
So it was my parents who reached out and told me about all that Deep was doing to help out and advocate for documented dreamers. And they'd heard about the Slack group, and so I joined it, and it's kind of already given me, a sense of community, like it can feel like you're very alone. But I found that there's people, throughout the US who are going through the same thing. And the Slack group and everything is just kind of showing me the need to raise awareness for all of these people who've been here since they were kids and, are contributing to society.
That's awesome. Aaron, I know same kind of story, Dad said, hey, you need to do this, right? And then
Yeah,
Sumana,
he
you
did.
were go ahead.
Sorry, he introduced us to Deep in this whole, I guess the younger generation's efforts to for immigration reform, which we didn't know existed before he like linked us up. So I'm really glad to be a part of it now, and really, really proud of the work that everyone's done so far.
Awesome. And Sumana, kind of similar in the sense that you guys were connected through some peers, I believe. Is that right? Similar acquaintances, or remind me again of the story?
Actually, Deep reached out to the Hidden Dream via our Twitter account.
Okay.
And at first, like, I remember someone taking a screenshot of him reaching out and putting it in like our board group chat, and we were like, is this account legit? Like, who is this? But then we ended up connecting, and we were mind blown at all the progress he had done, and we were like, we have to help in any way possible, and like, you have all hands on deck from the Hidden Dream team, and that's kind of how the partnership began, and it's been so awesome and like a great learning experience just working alongside Deep.
Very cool. And I've had the same sort of opinion when I was first introduced to Deep. It was like absolutely no doubt that this is the right group for me to align my platform with. And listen, we can pat on the back all we want. Today's a good day to celebrate. There's a lot of work left to do. But I think that there's a reason, right? And that is hard work. These things don't happen without a lot of hard work, a lot of power in numbers. And so, Deep, I know you had something that you wanted me to share. It's a Google Doc. I'm going to put that in the chat. There's a couple of Q&A, a couple questions from the chat that I want to cover. Deep, one that I want you to, two that I need you to answer, and then there's one for Sumana, and then we'll wrap this up here tonight. So, Deep, go ahead. Let me get this Google Doc link up, and I'll let you go ahead and start covering this. So this is for congressional offices who are supportive of the Documented Dreamer series. This is a survey.
I can go ahead and kind of
yep.
Yeah. So as to add one more thing to what Rob had asked earlier, like, should there be hope? I think absolutely. We're working right now with a congresswoman who is going to be leading a letter to leadership to urge them to make sure that documented dreamers are included in any future Dreamer bill. So it's going to go to Senate leadership, House leadership, and it's going to tell them in the Senate, any Senate version of the DREAM Act should include documented dreamers as well. And we're currently circulating this letter. We're going to be circulating this letter to different members of Congress and senators to have them sign on as well. And we already have many that have. So if you have already reached out to your member of Congress or their staff and they are supportive, make sure to fill out this Google form that Rob just pasted in the comments. It's just going to ask for your name, your email, and what office it is. And then I'll be able to kind of connect with them directly and just let them know of what's being worked on. But I think, this is a big deal, and it's going to be a public letter of support from a member of Congress. So it's a big deal that, it's something that really hasn't happened before. And I think it's going to add a lot of pressure on the Senate to make sure that we are included.
That's awesome. And I know you're working on a bunch of other things, and hopefully over, the next 4 or 5 weeks here, when we come back on, we'll get to celebrate and share some more really good news. So there was a question, Deep. I'm going to bring this up, and it says, my son has an H-4 visa, came to the U.S. when he's 17 years old. He didn't stay with us continuously because he may face an age-out issue. Will he be included in the Dreamers category? So I guess the question is being in the U.S. by a certain age, right? Isn't that the way I understand the language?
So the age would be fine, since it's just younger than 18. And actually, the Dream and Promise this year, it's 18 or younger.
Okay.
But he didn't stay with you continuously, so that depends. As long as he stayed for at least 4 years, um, I guess there's a lot of follow-up questions. But if he stayed for 4 years and then he left within the last 4 years, he would actually technically qualify under the Dream and Promise Act. However, I don't think that provision that allows someone who left in the past 4 years to qualify is going to stay in like the final version of the bill. That's something that's included in the House Dream and Promise Act, but it's not included in the Senate version of the Dream Act. And I would expect that to like not stay in the final version.
So let me understand this. Came as a 17-year-old. But would have had to have stayed in the U.S. until 21.
So there's a clause in the bill that basically says that anyone who was deported or left the United States after January 20th, 2017, can still qualify as long as they were here the 4 years prior to that date.
Okay.
So if he happened to be there the 4 years before January 2017, he could potentially qualify.
Yeah, I guess to me, when I read this, he says, hey, came as a 17-year-old. I don't know if this individual would have spent 4 years in the U.S. And of course, there's always follow-up questions to these, but still a good baseline to understand. So here's another good one, Deep. If I originally came in with my parents on a TD back in 2007, but they switched over to H1B later, would I still be eligible? And then he Bacon Beer Can, great handle. The text right now says, son or daughter of alien admitted as non-immigrant under H1B. Would I still be eligible if I was originally admitted under TDTM, but my parents are here now on H1? And this is the question that I got from my friend Jagar on Twitter. Same thing that you already answered earlier, which is basically yes, correct. If you entered on a TD, but you moved to an H1, as long as that was before 18, I'm assuming, he would qualify based on the current tax.
Yep.
Okay.
That's absolutely correct. So just to clarify it once and for all. So when this was drafted, we really clarified what the term admitted means. And it's admitted at any point. It doesn't mean that they're currently admitted under that status. It just means at any point, like either was or is admitted under that status. So as long as at some point you would qualify. Awesome.
Yeah, thanks, Bacon Beer Can, for checking in, and I think that we've got a good news for you if this thing moves forward. Shoba, who checks out a lot of the streams, Simana said, is this scholarship categorized statewide? She says wise, but I'm assuming she means, is it dependent based on the state, or is it any kid in the U.S. can apply? Can you clarify that? Referring to the Hidden Dream Scholarship.
So the Hidden Dream Scholarship is open to anyone in the United States. We have a couple more like requirements. Last year we had the scholarship only open to high school seniors and above, but we might revise a little bit of that. But we usually release the scholarship in August, so do keep an eye out for that. And then we try to give out the funding before kids head to school in September, October. But I don't know if Shoba is referring to the scholarship list that we have. That list, it should be nationwide scholarships as well. But all of the scholarships are linked, so your child or you can like click on them and then see the specific requirements, but status definitely won't be an issue for.
And then those are ones that accept international students. Is that right? The international students can apply for those scholarships. I just want to make sure I'm understanding it myself personally.
Right. There's no, there's basically no immigration status requirement to apply to the scholarships.
Doesn't need to be a U.S. citizen or a permanent resident can apply for it. Okay, awesome. So Deep, we answered this question earlier for Watcher. Watcher's a big follower and always on the live streams. So Watcher, this answer is yes. H4, it's not immediate though, right? Deep. What's the time frame again?
Essentially, everyone, if this became law, you would instantly get a conditional green card. It would be a 10-year conditional green card, and then you have to meet certain conditions to remove those conditions and get a permanent green card. The simplest one that most people will meet is the one that it's just completing 2 years of college. So if your son or daughter has already completed 2 years of college, they can instantly get a permanent green card.
Okay. Awesome. Thanks, Watcher, man. Good to see you. Always appreciate your support. I have one more question, Deep, that I think we wanted to cover that had come in from your guys' Instagram post earlier today. And it asks, what are the requirements of the final bill that are expected to change in the Senate? Do you have any idea on what we could be looking at, the language-wise, that may be changed?
So the most common language, the prior versions of the DREAM Act required one to be 17 years old or younger to qualify. This one made it 18 or younger. I expect that to go back to less than 18, so 17 or younger to qualify. And then also all previous versions of Dreamer bills have required one to be present the last 4 years. But this one, they kind of just did continuously since January of 2021. So I expect that to revert back to at least 4 years as well. So those are the two major criterias, but that might also get a little bit more restrictive as they negotiate that for to get 10 Republican votes. And then also that major provision where if someone left America in the last 4 years, they could potentially qualify under a Dream and Promise. But I don't think that provision is going to end up staying.
And I've read some chatter about potentially the farmers workforce, being there's some combination of the two. And, if that were to happen in the Senate, just so anyone who doesn't know how the process would work, that entire new bill would have to go back to the House and potentially back through committee and work its way back up, called back to the chamber floor and be re-voted on, because it would have changes to the language or amendments. So, well, cool. Great news. Lots to be thankful for and celebrate tonight. I did want to mention, Deep, we're going to do April 22nd, 2001 at 9 a.m. or 9 a.m. Excuse me, not 9 a.m. 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So April 22nd, 2001, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. 2021. We'll have on a couple of more new dreamers from Improve the Dream. We may even have a familiar face or two back on. So Deep will be working on that. April 22nd, 2021, 9 p.m. Eastern. There, I got it right that time. I also wanted to mention I'm going to be doing another Stamp It Out. I'm starting that back up. So Stamp It Out Q&A one-on-one with my good friend Samir Kulkarni. That'll be next Wednesday, March 24th. And then on March 31st, there'll be another H1B Guy and Friends live. And then I'm going to be taking some time off first week of April. And then we're going to be coming back and hitting it hardcore again with another Stamp It Out that I'm really excited about the second week in April. So those are going to be my 3 next live streams that I'll be doing. And then, of course, April 22nd here again. But I just wanted to go back around the horn. Aaron, I wanted to give you an opportunity to close it out tonight, and if there's anything that you wanted to close out with.
I just wanted to emphasize, hopefully a lot of American citizens do see this video, and just to, it's really important to educate yourself on the immigration system in your country, and to just understand maybe not all the complexities, but just understanding that it's not as simple as it may appear, and that we do really need reform, especially in our case, that's what we really want, but in a lot of just immigration reform in general, it's something that's really, really needed. Yeah. And I don't have any of my own social medias to promote, but just if everyone can go follow the can dream and improve the dream. That would be awesome.
Awesome. Sumana?
Yeah, I wanted to just echo everything that has been said. It's very important to have support from citizens, people within your community. And I think one thing I would love to add on is one of the biggest reasons the Hidden Dream started working with Improve the Dream is because both of our missions believe that all children, regardless of their status, who have been brought here at a young age, deserve a shot at a path to a green card or a citizenship. The goal of these efforts are in no way to undermine like the undocumented or like the original dreamer community. The goal is to unite our efforts and make sure that all children are uplifted. All of these kids deserve a shot in calling the one place home, actually being able to live there without like fear. And yeah, in terms of social media, the Hidden Dream, our handle Instagram is @_the Hidden Dream _, and there you'll get updates on all of our workshops, guides, and scholarships and breaking news in the immigration world as well.
And you also on Twitter too? The Hidden Dream on Twitter? Or no?
Yeah, and I believe it's the same handle for
Okay. And then just to repeat, the hiddendream.org /resources for the playbook and for the scholarship information. Okay. And that'll be in the description. I'll make sure to include that. Awesome. Morgan?
I think they summed it up really well. If there's like one takeaway, maybe to see that, documented dreamers are just as great a value to society and can contribute, just as much as citizens.
Awesome. Deep?
I think they all summed it up really well. I think we're well on our way to make sure that all children, irrespective of their status, can get a clear path to citizenship. And, I think we can get it done this year. So let's keep hope and encourage your kids to join our Slack groups and take that survey.
Yep. So that's improvethedream.org /survey. And that's in the description of the video already. Feel free to go ahead and hit that. So I'm going to go ahead and just remind everyone that tonight's live stream was brought to you by RecruiterNetworks.com, the smart solution for digital perm ads since 2001. This national job board network provides recruitment websites in 1,024 major U.S. metro areas. Each local job board is its own portal and is a low-cost resource for immigration recruitment ads for all industries and professions with a flat price of $225 per ad, regardless of which city you choose. RecruiterNetworks.com has been the #1 place for immigration attorneys, immigration ad agencies, and employers to meet the DOL requirements for the digital portion of the perm advertisement rules. RecruiterNetworks.com. Tell them the H1B guy sent you. Well, I just want to say, Aaron, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. Sumana, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. And Morgan, thank you for coming on and sharing your story. I am very proud of the three of you and want the three of you to know that if I can help you in any way, shape, or form in the future, please don't hesitate to ask me. And
Thank you
Deep,
for having me on.
absolutely. Thank you, girls, for being willing to come on. It personally means a lot to me to be able to help share your story. It just does. And Deep, as always, thank you for this partnership and this series, allowing the H1B Guy platform to be associated with improvethedream.org and the advocacy that is going on and the work that you're doing. Deep, thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rob. It's an honor for us to be on a professional channel.
Semi-pro is what we'll call it for now, right? But hey, I guess I do get to run ads, so might as well call it professional. With that being said, just want to ask you again one more time, like this video so that we can get it promoted in the YouTube algorithm over the next few weeks. Subscribe to the H1B Guy channel here on YouTube, and make sure you click the bell for notifications so that you're notified anytime we go live like we did tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern for the Documented Dreamers Series Live, Episode 3. With that being said, I'm Robert. I'm the H1B Guy. Your